bonjour, and welcome to the Amateur Detective Club. This club is exactly how it sounds. A bunch of amateurs talking about their favorite mysteries. So if you encounter a real mystery or a murder, contact the proper authorities. Do not come to us. We do not know what we are doing. But enjoy the program. Allons-y. Let us begin.
I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to order. My name is Tristan Miller, the saucy sleuth.
I'm Melissa Meli, the spy.
I'm Tyler Riley, cop and a half.
Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/adcpod and browse the unmatched selections of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Just go to audibletrial.com/adcpod. Today, I'm Terry Gross, and you're listening to Fresh Air. So I'm coming at you all in these streets. I'm coming at you from beautiful, sunny Winona, Minnesota. I'm visiting my family here. Melissa, you're also not New York. We are again not in each other's presence.
I am in Pennsylvania, where I go sometimes on purpose.
And Tyler, are you still in New York?
Nope, I am in the great state of New Jersey.
Oh, so we're now no one is in New York. Ooh,
Not a single one of us.
The city misses us, I'm sure. Everyone's weeping and gnashing their teeth, writhing and rolling on the ground. So sometimes we talk before we get to the episode, and people complain about it. No, sometimes we talk about.
We talk. All the time we talk.
And then we talk when we're talking about the episode, about other things that are not the episode.
That is also true. But I've been starting doing semi-daily videos that, Melissa, you seem to be a fan of. And I would love for you to explain to Tyler what they are.
Yeah.
Because this is a fun game for me.
Great. So Tristan bought a book of riddles for kids from CVS for $5, and sometimes he reads, well, he often, daily in fact, reads riddles from this book on Instagram and TikTok, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
$5.50. Thank you very much. I spent the big bucks.
Okay.
Remember when $50 used to be like good currency, like those little coin $50?
Oh yeah, with Kennedy on them, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I thought my mind jumped to Hey Penny, and I was like, Tyler, how old are you?
A question that often gets asked.
But yeah, I remember a Kennedy $50. I remember it was a big fuss when we got the Sacagawea gold coin dollar.
Yeah.
Ooh, those were collectible items. Then you realized you were hoarding.
Yet stores
dollars.
will not take sand dollars, which I find offensive.
The stupidest thing I've ever heard. So I'm a little slap happy from the travel, and like it's only an hour time difference, but between that and the heat, it was like 100 degrees out here. Talking about the weather at the beginning of a podcast, you love to hear it, folks. And I went out with my niece and my nephew to a lake in 100-degree weather, and I think my brain got fried. But yeah, I was standing in line at the CVS, and I saw this book of riddles while I was waiting to pick up a prescription. And I was like, you know what would be stupid? And it was the thing that Melissa described to you just now. However, I take umbrage with this riddle book. For about half of the riddles I've encountered so far are, in fact, not riddles, but knock-knock jokes. Which are, in fact, jokes. So I'm quite...
Well, I mean, if a riddle starts off with knock knock, I think that is an issue.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and I say it every time. I'm like, again, not a riddle. This is just a knock-knock joke.
Well, I guess you are trying to figure out who is there. So there is a mystery or riddle element to it.
Okay, so when does a joke become a riddle? Now we've gotten to the question.
Right. What is a riddle exactly?
Yeah. For me, it is a brain teaser. It is like a series of questions, similar, like 20 questions is like a form of riddle game. Generally, it has to rhyme, in my estimation, a riddle does. And you have to, it's a brain teaser. And generally, riddles aren't funny. But this book is full of fun and funny riddles, so maybe I should let them slide when they put in a joke or two. What about you, Tyler?
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't
you
have
know
an opinion
you
about
know a
jokes
riddle
versus
when
riddles?
you hear it. I feel.
You know? Just like life pornography, you know a riddle when you see
if
it.
the Sphinx asks me a question, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to assume it's a riddle.
Even if it's where did I park the car?
Yeah, I mean 9 times out of 10.
Okay. Melissa is chewing, so I won't ask her opinion.
No, you should ask my opinion because I've stopped chewing now.
Okay.
A riddle doesn't have to rhyme. That's wild.
Really?
Yes,
the riddles?
that is wild. I also...
A riddle is not a limerick. A riddle is like, you know the one. Okay. I agree that it's a brain teaser. So it's a doctor goes over to a body, a
And he
person.
says, I'm Pagliacci.
Mm-hmm. He goes over and says, I can't. No. I totally ruined it. Okay, the doctor says, I can't operate on this person. He's my son. It's not his father. Who is the doctor?
It's mom. The doctor is
Right,
a woman.
right. And like that was a hard riddle when, I don't know, I was a kid because no women were doctors or something. That's a riddle. Yeah, it's like a Sphinx question. Exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay. So the reason I think riddles often should rhyme is because my first introduction to riddles was John Ronald Reuel Tolkien's The Hobbit, in which all the riddles in the dark, I believe, rhyme, with the exception of, what have I got in my pocket?
Okay. That's fair.
So...
if you're a hobbit, riddle should rhyme.
Yes. Like, for example, a box without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid.
Right.
The
And
answer
very
is...
rarely did the Riddler rhyme.
Excuse me, hi diddle diddle, it's time for a riddle? That's
just
a rhyme.
his intro.
Yeah, like that's...
I think, okay, when... didn't Frank Gorshin's Riddler rhyme from the 1960s Batman character?
Not to my recollection, but I could be wrong. But I know that Jim Carrey's did not.
That's fair. Jim Carrey's did not do a lot of things.
Didn't make my boy happy at all.
No.
Not my Tommy Lee.
I do love how much he hated Jim, which makes sense. But yeah, did you do riddles growing up?
In school, like occasionally that was like the quote-unquote fun activity of the day, and we'd all just be annoyed by it. But yeah, and then like there were some educational shows growing up, like Crash Box, which was an HBO family program that incorporated riddles sometimes. Zoom, which was a PBS show for kids, like things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Same.
Okay, so in my family, we told a fair amount of riddles growing up, but apparently we're just prairie folk, and that's why. No, because like we liked, my dad had this old book of riddles, which is similar to the one I have, and I may read a passage or two from that while I'm here. But,
right now?
No, not right now. Not
Okay.
not on this airway, but for the videos I've been doing. But yeah, we had a lot of goofy fun with that, and like, but like the riddles I'm reading are basically Laffy Taffy rejects. It's quite horrible. They're these very bad puns. They're mostly just terrible puns. You know, it's not even like, you know, it's like when is a door not a door? When it's a jar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which is a pun more than a riddle.
Tyler loves it.
So Tyler, what I'm hearing is you should watch these videos I've been putting. Yeah. But yeah, it's stuff like that. By the way, I don't think I said the answer to the one from The Hobbit, which is, of course, eggs. But yeah, so we did a lot of riddles. That's so interesting. I never considered that you didn't that someone's childhood wouldn't be filled with the whimsy that is riddles. I just assumed everyone had long car trips where, like, well, we gotta pass the time somehow.
We listen to
we
music.
pass the time by, like, not talking to each other. Different strokes, you know.
For different folks. That's what they say. So this episode is the season premiere of season 11 of Agatha Christie's Poirot. It's called Mrs. McGinty is Dead. And I want to give a warning here if you haven't yet seen the episode. Your TV is not out of focus. They put a filter on it. For what reason, I don't know.
For the whole thing. Just the whole episode.
Not even like the flashback sequences or like once he gets to the creepy town, which we'll get to in a minute. The entire episode.
Were y'all mad about it?
I wasn't mad.
Okay.
I was confused because generally when one makes a color choice or a filter choice in post like that, it's for narrative reasons. And I just didn't know why they had done it.
No, I mean, I can only speculate, but it made me feel like I was watching, like, an old episode of Poirot. Like, this was released in 2008, and this, like, the series started in, like, the 80s, and it gave me more of that 80s feel.
Mm-hmm.
So it did feel like a retro episode.
I will say they do slap film grain on it, which, if you're watching in, like, a high-def TV, is very interesting, because it's clearly not shot on film and added later, and I think that really added to the nostalgia, as Tyler, you're saying. But
yeah.
The almost vignette style of like, the depth of field in this. Whew. Anyway.
I think it's interesting.
I think I misunderstood what you had posed originally.
Mm-hmm. You know, because it feels like there's a little bit of cloudiness around the edge of the screen.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, they put a filter as well on that, or they managed to focus very long.
It looks like
lenses.
the whole thing is in a dream sequence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or the Hobbit films. Oh, exact same deal. But anyway, point being, it's on purpose. We don't know why. I would love to know why. I'm not mad at it. I just want to know why.
Someone just left it on. They just forgot.
I think
they just let Windows Movie Maker do whatever it was gonna do.
Like, oh man, it's gonna take too long to like re-upload a whole new episode. We just gotta send this one along.
Yeah.
That's funny. So it starts off with a trial, and this very young, fidgety man is being sentenced to death for the murder of the titular Mrs. McGinty, who has been bludgeoned to death, found in her own home. There's £60, £60 rather, hidden under a rock, and it is he who is suspected and is found guilty by a court. and then is sentenced to hang.
According to you.
Courting to Jim, that's when Jim Belushi comes on to you and he starts courting you.
I wouldn't mind.
Oh, I understand, Melissa, but that's so mean.
No, that's not what I meant. Just
Okay.
sorry.
Ugh.
Comes on
Just
to
not for Melissa.
No,
Yeah, that's
listen.
not for-
It has nothing to do with Jim Belushi. It had to do with the term "coming on to you," which I didn't
Okay.
know that I was opposed
Yeah.
to at this point in my life, but apparently I am. Apparently that term no longer works for me.
That's fair. It's one of those like archaic sort of like, I like to like if someone says something vaguely nice about me, I'm like, what are you coming on to me? Like as a bit. Anyway.
So this man discovered the body, and that's why they think he did it.
Yes.
Because he's very
Thank you.
nervous. He's a very nervous man, and so ergo.
And he's a lower class and not particularly bright, and so they've all jumped on him going, well, of course the dumb poor person didn't know better than to hide the money not under a rock. Who does that?
Yeah.
And so the superintendent Spence, who is the person in charge of the investigation, goes to Poirot because he has his doubts. He says, I don't think such and such actually killed Mrs. McGinty. Will you look into this for me? But I have another case.
And it's interesting because Poirot says to him, did he have a fair trial? And it was notable to me that the counselor said, yeah, by all accounts, it was a fair trial, but, according to our justice system. And it really, really made me think of the American justice system as well. I really like is a weird word, but I'm very interested in wrongful conviction cases. And I've watched a lot of documentaries about them. And, the idea of having a fair trial for a lot of people is not a thing. As much as it's a legal trial, it's not a fair trial by all accounts. So by the real definition of the word fair, I should say.
While we're kind of in the zone, this episode has a lot of class commentary. And xenophobia commentary as well, but specifically during the upper class in this little village that we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah, we are here for Lucy Lawless. No xenophobia. Xena, warrior princess.
Yes,
That's right.
Yes. So you should write the new riddle book that I'm working on, Tyler. So he goes to this Poirot. So Poirot and Spence are talking. And Spence is like, if it's not too much trouble. And Poirot is like, I have an abundance of nothing to do. Please, I will take this case. So he goes to the creepiest little village outside of London. This whole thing Broadhenny, yes. This whole thing reminded me very much of Hot Fuzz, the film by Edgar Wright. But he goes and he's staying in this hostel thing with this couple who can no longer afford to maintain their own mansion. They've recently come back from India, so they've started renting out rooms in order to get a little bit of cash on the side. And
there's animals everywhere.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love dogs, but there is a time and a place, and it's not when you're preparing food. Dogs should not be in licking distance of the things that you were cutting up and putting in a bowl for human consumption.
Agreed.
I even agree with that.
It was There's Something About Mary. You know the scene I'm talking about, right?
No, I wish I did.
There's the lady with like the lap dog, and like the dog is like tonguing this woman's mouth like while she's talking, and it's the most
Yes.
disgusting.
Oh. I blocked that out.
But kudos to that. Like, do you even like kudos an actress for going through that?
No.
Absolutely.
For just soldiering through?
100%.
I would say you pity her and hope that she got points on the back end.
Yeah. I will say yes to both.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good for her, and I hope she got taken care of.
Yes. So there's animals, there's ducks and chickens and turkeys and geese, all for the town to see and hear. Just squawking just as noisily as they can. The one time I make a musical theater. Anyway, so...
What? Oh, chicks and ducks and geese better scurry?
No.
What are you referencing?
If I was a rich man, come on, get on my steez.
Oh.
Anyway, there's a bunch of animals everywhere. Poirot, there's a giraffe. Poirot hates it, and it's shot. This house is shot at a bunch of like Dutch angles and crooked, and it's very horror because it's just a terrible place for Poirot to be. And it's very funny.
He's trying to be nice, but he just has so much tolerance for this.
Yeah. So I can't recall the characters' names, but there's a husband and a wife that own this place, and the husband just got back from India, and the husband is working on his book, and that's why he's not working, and that's why they're in the situation that they are financially and have to rent out guest rooms. So there's three couples that matter in this.
Yes.
Because of reasons we'll find out later on. There is the people that own the hostel at which Poirot is staying. There's a doctor and his wife who, his wife is just terribly, terribly nervous all the time. Then there is the colonel and his wife who seem incredibly nondescript. Those are the 6 couples with which we are dealing with. And then there's also Miss, I believe her name is like Sugar Madam, like literally. Sweeteman. What? Anyway, she runs the local post office and general store, and we meet her. And then there's also Eve and a politician who are very hoi polloi, highfalutin people.
Eve Carpenter.
Yes.
And we also have Paul, the actor's name is Paul Reese, but Robin Upward and his mother,
yes.
Mrs. Upward.
Yes.
Yes.
And so these are the people we meet. Poirot interviews them where they were the night of the murder, gets a general sense of who they are. And then he is given the remainder of Mrs. McGinty. And throughout this episode, Poirot will sometimes refer to Mrs. McGinty as the McGinty, which is adorable and hysterical. The McGinty.
Like the MacGuffin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, now I want McDonald's. Can we go one episode without wanting McDonald's?
I don't want McDonald's right now.
Well,
I do. And I already ordered dinner tonight. And now I'm mad.
So he gets the remaining belongings of the McGinty, and he's going through them, and he finds an old newspaper.
Yeah.
It's not that old. It's from 3 days before she died, and there is a chunk taken out. So he rushes back to London to the Daily Comment to find a copy of it, which we get a nice scene with his little butler. His butler's pretty tall. With his little butler, it's Poirot's little butler, hands him some hot chocolate, and he's reading about it. And it's about 2 tortured young girls, one of whom was a killer, and one of whom was her father was murdered, and her mother ran off to Australia to have the child, very tragically.
Yes. So there's Eva or Eve. It's Eve something.
Eva Kane and
Kane.
Lillian.
Like
Lillian
Gumble
Gilbert or some.
Gumbledork, something.
Gamble.
Thank you, Lily
So
Gamble.
Lily Gamble. Eva Kane and Lily Gamble. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, so Lily Gamble is supposed to have murdered someone with a meat cleaver as a child.
Yes.
And Eva Kane, who also escaped, but okay, so this is what I don't understand. So, Eva Kane was the mother. She wasn't the mother, but she was the caretaker of Lily Gamble. She said, like, I'm going to take this kid away from everything and make a home for her? What? Okay.
Lily Gamble completely is, I believe she was the governess. Eva Kane, governess to Lily Gamble. The murder happens. Her husband, Eva Kane's husband, is hanged for the murder that also happened. Eva Kane goes to Australia, and she is already with child and has the child there.
Okay.
To just start anew, I believe is what happens.
They didn't escape together.
No. Lily Gamble they're still somewhere in the United Kingdom.
Okay, so then Eva Kane had a daughter, says the newspaper, named Evelyn Hope.
Exactly. Yes. I believe so. Anyhow, we have these two sensational stories in the Sunday paper. Poirot goes, someone in the village must be related to this, and that is why Mrs. McGinty was murdered, because she found out about it.
Right.
So he goes to the Sunday Comment and talks to one of the reporter that wrote it, and he said, "Is it true?" And she goes, "Absolutely not. No, it's fiction for Sunday paper. It's just hogwash."
Right, like maybe some of it is, who knows, but I definitely editorialized here and there.
She says, "Heck, I don't know," which is so fun.
Exactly.
And then he goes back to the village, and Mrs. Upward, who is not an elderly woman, but a woman probably in her 60s to early 70s, but is confined to a wheelchair due to arthritis, and her son, Robin, dotes on her in a way that is deeply disturbing.
How so?
Oh, it's just so much. Too much. Too much. It's very similar to the Death on the Nile situation.
No.
Yes. Really? Yeah. Yeah.
You wouldn't care for your mother in the same way.
I would not kiss her hand and call her my precious. No. What am I, Smeagol? No.
Wow.
I forgot to tell you. I watched this episode with my mother because she watches the show and she listens to the podcast sometimes, and she said that's a little weird. So I am, for my family, in the right here, Tyler. So
all right.
I don't know. Like, I just wanted to see if I could catch you saying something inappropriate.
Good.
Oh, I see. You said a honeypot for me. Gotcha. But Mrs. Upward, who is bound by the wheelchair, has gotten together a soiree of all the people in town.
Everyone we've met.
With the exception of someone we need to meet.
Yes.
Everyone's favorite character, Ariadne Oliver,
played,
rolls up.
Of course, by the brilliant Zoe Wanamaker.
Always eating apples. Have you noticed that?
No.
She's constantly eating an apple. The way she's introduced is she throws an apple core out her window and hits Poirot in the face.
It's so good.
It's
So good.
It's very funny. And she goes, "It's just an apple core. It wouldn't hurt. Where are you going? Why are you here?"
She's like, "Oh, someone's been murdered, haven't they?
Yeah, it's
Wonderful. Hope it's not the people I'm staying with."
Yeah.
Yeah. So it turns out she's in town to help write a play. There's someone who wants to dramatize one of her stories.
Yes.
And it happens to be the son of Mrs. Upward, Robin Upward. Mm-hmm. So we get lots of sequences with the two of them writing this book, by the way. I just have to note. And he's sitting at a typewriter, and he's like, "Okay, but so he's about 35." And she says he's 60. And he says, "Yes, but then that makes it very creepy for him to have a sexual relationship with the young woman." She's like, "Yes, it does. Don't do that. Why would you do that?"
She says Sven, who is the name of her detective, has never been interested in women his entire life. And he goes, "Oh, you can't make him a dandy."
Uh-huh.
I was like, and at one point he wants him to go skiing and have sex in a sauna.
Yeah. He's never had sex.
Yeah. And this, all I could think is like, this must have been the pitch meeting for the Kenneth Branagh version of Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, jeez. But
and
it's
how exhausting in a sauna.
Yeah, that's not even appealing. Like,
right? Like, that just seems uncomfortable
It's
for like
already
no
so
reason
warm.
whatsoever. Like, just wait.
yeah, it's like the idea of actually having sex on a beach. It sounds very romantic, but there's so much sand.
It is not
It's
practical.
rough and coarse, and it gets everywhere.
It gets everywhere.
All of a sudden, you got a broken shell or a needle jabbing you in the ass. It's not a good time.
A hypodermic needle. What is this, 1984?
According to QAnon.
No, I'm not talking about him.
Big Brother is here, Tristan.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so there's a bunch of sequences there, and of course, Ariadne Oliver wants to try and solve the murder before Poirot does, and she calls him a couple of times and says, "I think it's this person." Her suspicions are the doctor and Joe, the Colonel Joe someone or other, because he looks suspicious. But anyway, there's all these sequences where he's getting the lay of the land, and basically, we've kind of already covered it. Like, one lady's nervous about something and it's suspicious. One lady just got back from India, and that's a little weird, I guess, and is not doing well financially. And then the other one is just incredibly vain and hoity-toity and doesn't wear her glasses. She's so vain that she keeps bumping into stuff, which I can relate to.
Yeah, she keeps bumping into stuff. She's very interesting. So essentially, he works out that none of the people are really quite the right age to be Eva Kane. Like, Mrs. Upward's the right age, but she's not. She's wheelchair bound, and it just doesn't fit. But three of these three women are about the right age to be Evelyn Hope, her daughter.
Yes.
If Mrs. McGinty had figured out something about about Eva Kane, then the daughter would want to potentially,
Bugs Bunny them?
Bump him off.
Yeah. That's how you know you're Italian, Melissa. You bump them off. You want as I should get rid of you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But then what happens is Poirot kind of sets his own honeypot, much as Tyler did. At the soiree, everyone's like, oh, there's got to be something else going on. Please give us a clue, Poirot. Please, please, please. And he goes, bo, 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 do. And he puts the two pictures down of the two young ladies from the newspaper article.
Yes.
And he asks each, does anyone recognize these photos?
But why are these clues?
Which is like, someone does ask, why are these clues? It's like, well, if I told you that. It's, again, the difference between a riddle and a joke. It's not a punchline. It's a clue.
Oh, okay. I'm like...
A riddle
boy.
is just a joke that you have to find the punchline for.
No. Or, okay, it could, a riddle is a joke, and the punchline is the answer.
Yeah. That you have to discover the punchline. The person's not going to tell you it.
It might not be funny, though.
It could not be funny. But here's the thing, Melissa. Some jokes,
That's true.
also not funny.
This is a good point you have, my
I wouldn't
friend.
know.
You've only ever made funny jokes, or you've never experienced humor.
Yes.
Mm.
Okay. So he goes, you want some clues? And he literally pirouettes and pulls these two photos out of his pockets and lays them on the table. It's glorious. It's the quickest we've seen Poirot ever move. It's beautiful.
And Mrs. Upward says that she has seen the photo of Lily Gamble, the murderous child, but she doesn't say where she saw it.
Mm-hmm.
She just says, oh, it must have been recently, but I can't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's old. She can get away with whatever.
Or so she thinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because Poirot and she has a conversation, and he's like, if you know something, you have to tell me, because you could die. And
Yeah.
she's like, I don't think you understand how we do things over here in England, Mr. Poirot. Essentially. It's
Yeah.
incredibly rude.
Well, I mean, it is.
And specifically with going to, like, the class elements as well, of, like, with Eve, the politician's wife. Both she and the politician are incredibly dismissive of Poirot because he is foreign, and also of the man who is being perhaps wrongfully hanged because he is of a lower class, and also of Mrs. McGinty. The whole town has a bad attitude about Mrs. McGinty dying because she's a char lady. Which, is that like a chimney sweep?
I'm not sure, honestly.
I thought it was just a cool way to say charlatan.
Charlotte McGinty.
But yes, so Eve, whose last name is Carpenter, I think it's great that you keep mumbling.
Charpenter.
Yeah, mumbling her last name like it's a hard word to pronounce. I know it's just that you don't remember it, but it's very fun that it's like, oh, what's the name? It's
But
a
I remember
Carpenter.
like Sweetumum or whatever the...
Well, I mean, of course you do.
Yeah. But anyway, Poirot and she have this conversation, and she goes, forget about it. Don't worry about it, Poirot. I'll be fine. Then, is it immediately after this that he goes back to London for a reason and takes the train?
I think so.
No, there's a couple of other things. I'm sorry. He goes and he makes his rounds again. And one of the rounds he makes is with doctor's wife, who's incredibly nervous, who then yells at him, Poirot, not the doctor.
Dr. Keller, right?
Yes, Dr. Ross Geller.
He's a paleontologist, if you can believe it.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
He's not. Ross Geller is, though.
Yeah. Oh, from the Friends.
Yeah.
Yes. One of the titular friends.
But I'm talking about the doctor on the television
Yes.
program that we're reviewing.
I know.
We've all lost our minds.
Tristan made a dumb joke that it was Dr. Ross Geller because it sounded similar.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going off of.
And now we're here.
And we explained
So
the
Dr.
whole
Keller. Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Keller, medicine woman.
who is not a paleontologist.
No, but an actual doctor. I said what I said. Come at me, paleontologists and chiropractors. What are you gonna do? Fight me and then my back's better? Come on.
Doctors and Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Go.
What is a paleontologist gonna do to me? Throw bones at me? I already got bones.
Bones hurt, man.
Nah, not if you're doing it right. Anyway, so,
We should talk after the program. I have questions.
I'm so worried for you.
Gigantor. So anyway, he speaks with the doctor's wife, and the doctor's wife says it's all lies, none of it's true, and we all know that you're not here because of the McGinty case, because it wouldn't matter because she's just a char lady. Are you kidding me? It's absurd. We all know why you're here. It's not true, any of it. None of those letters are true. And Poirot's like, what are you talking about? And she storms off, and he's like, okay, so that just happened. And he has a sort of similar vibe with Eve Carpenter and her husband, because they think he's snooping around because he's running for some sort of political office. And then the major, they're not very suspicious of, except for the woman, the major's wife, who is the hostel. They own the hostel. She was adopted, which puts her under a certain level of suspicion.
Right. Could one of these people be an adopted child, and therefore, the daughter of Eva Kane?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all speculate. We all do. But the writer, the journalist, had speculated also that she had died. So
yes. Now, it is after this that Poirot goes away to London because we've forgotten a character. And that character is the real estate agent who is friends with the boy who would be hanged. They work at the same...
James Bentley.
Thank you, Bentley. James Bentley. They're friends. They like each other. They're very fond of each other. They shared a walk once, and they kind of have a crush on each other.
yes,
And she's been helping Poirot out, and she has some news to give him. So he goes back to London, and she snoops around. She snooped around all of these people's homes under the guise of getting appraisal for the homes. What she discovers, I don't remember. Oh, I do remember. Thank you for holding. Carpenter, Eve Carpenter, used to be a burlesque dancer and has some pretty raunchy photos tucked away because of it, and she's trying to keep that a hush-hush.
yes.
And so Poirot goes, okay, why do you want to know all about this? And she gets very flustered. At one point, she says, he goes, why do you want to know about this? And she drops that she knows the name Evelyn Hope and Ava Kane, despite them not being mentioned in the news article, and he pushes her, and she exits promptly. And then it is on his ride home on the train that someone pushes him in front of a train. And he's lying there about to get hit when one of the sergeants that is at the train station pulls him up and saves him. It is noted that when he's about to get hit by the train, his hat It does not fall off.
It does not.
It's very funny. I'm like, how squashed down is it?
I mean, some hats are just very well fitted.
Yeah.
I thought that was the morning his stepdaughter Matilda had gone in and put glue underneath his cap.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, as likely as anything, of course. The actress who plays Sarah Smart, who looks a little bit like Jennifer Goodwin, but she also is a British actress who has been on Doctor Who.
That's fun.
Yes. I'm trying, because I was trying to figure out where I knew her from.
Mm-hmm.
She's in 2 episodes, so I think that's probably why.
And she looks also like a young Imelda Staunton.
I do like how we've gotten to a point in this series where it's recent enough that we're starting to see a bunch of actors we recognize more and more.
Yeah.
Which is quite fun. Which is much like watching the Harry Potter series. You're like, oh, of course, every British actor is in this movie.
Also, Ruth Gemmell, who plays Miss Sweeteman, is Mrs. Madame Violet Bridgerton, Lady Violet Bridgerton.
In Bridgerton?
Okay.
In Bridgerton.
Okay.
Like the mom, right?
Yeah.
I have not seen it, so I will say yes.
I know.
So, he almost dies.
Technically a mystery.
Bridgerton, it is. It's technically a mystery.
Isn't it just horny, though? Isn't it mostly horny?
It's very horny, but it's
horniest you could ever imagine.
So I'm there for that. You know me.
Yeah, it's very horny.
So Poirot almost dies.
Yeah, it's very upsetting.
It's very upsetting.
And then he's talking to Ariadne Oliver later, and he's like, "Oh yes, I almost was killed. I was thrown in front of a train." She's like, "Really?"
She goes, "Oh my word."
Yes. Oh god, she's so perfect. And then she goes to see a play.
Yes, because at the suggestion of Mrs. Upton, they should start thinking about casting as well. And Robin has this notion of the lead actor that's currently in his play that's at a repertory theater nearby would be perfect for Sven. So he drags Ariadne Oliver to his currently running play.
Yeah.
He's apparently a very well-known playwright.
Right.
He is a famous person, back when you could be famous for being a playwright more often.
Sure. So they go to see the play. He makes a phone call as they're leaving.
To check in.
Yeah, they stop on the side of the road, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Before that, he goes and they're about to drive off. He goes back in to speak with Madre, as he calls Mrs. Upton, because he forgot to bring her coffee. And then they go and he makes a phone call to check in with her on the way. Yes. They pull over to the side of the road.
And then they get back, and Ariadne Oliver walks into the house. Where has he gone? Because he goes somewhere else.
He's in the car still checking on something or other.
Right, okay. So
she just is fed up and wants to go to bed. It's very clear that she did not. She says it was quite good, but rather sad. And I didn't, anyway. She did not enjoy the evening.
So she goes in and she's trying to talk to Mrs. Upward, and Mrs. Upward's not responding. And so she goes and checks, and Mrs. Upward is deceased.
Rip to a real one.
Oh. R.I.P. Not like rip. Not like torn.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, rip to a real one.
Oh, man.
Could
you imagine?
Oh, yeah. It looks like a bear's been in here. My goodness. No. you cannot listen to these tapes. So she's discovered the body, and she alerts the police, obviously, and that allows Spence to actually get back on the case, because he comes up, because he's, Inspector Scotland Yard. Now he's getting pulled on to this case because he has familiarity to it, because he's been absent this whole time.
Yeah.
And also, she says a very funny thing to Poirot. She goes, it's not very pleasant discovering a body. And he goes, no. And she goes, I'll have to write in less screaming, though. And Poirot does laugh at that, which is I love their relationship. It's very, very fun.
Oh, it's great.
Yes.
And that's a really good observation and, like, just a fun little,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's way less screaming when you discover a body, as far as I understand.
Yeah.
I have not discovered a body, thankfully.
The only the body I've discovered is my own.
I mean, I've discovered a body in, like, the Christopher Columbus sense of the word.
Sure.
Like, the body already existed, and I was
Right.
like...
But I'm going to take credit for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Like, all my exes, like, I made you what you are now.
That is so funny, Tyler. So it turns out that Mrs. Upton had called the three women that would be of the appropriate age. The major's wife, the doctor's wife. I wish I knew their names, and then
It's okay.
Eve Carpenter.
Yeah.
Because reducing them to the, defining them by their husbands a bit rude. But my memory is bad.
It's okay.
One of them's named Bessie. Who cares? Anyway, but
Bessie cares.
yeah, that is true. Bessie does care.
Not her husband, though.
Oh no, not one lick.
Mm-mm.
So they all received a message from Mrs. Upton asking for them to go to coffee, which is something that Mrs. Upton herself had suggested she might do.
Yeah.
And Carpenter refuses. Doctor's wife took her medicine because she has a nervous condition and had promptly fallen asleep. And then the Airbnb hostess tried to go, but the door was locked and couldn't get in.
Right. And she is discovered with a coffee service next to her, and there is lipstick on a cup. And there is a strong scent.
Yes.
Of
An expensive scent.
Yes, which is to say
expensive perfume.
Perfume, yeah. Also, she being Mrs. Upton.
Right. Our dead friend. Oh.
Yes. So they're all a little sus, as they say.
Mm-hmm. But they're especially looking at Eve Carpenter because the perfume matched.
Yes. Pardon me. And then we get a scene where again Poirot goes back to London, yes? For some reason or another. Probably just because he can't stand being... Isn't this around the time where he meets with Bentley again? Yes, he does. Thank you. That is correct. Take it away.
He meets with Bentley.
Yes.
And then... like I told you, I don't know this episode that well.
Okay, so basically what he says is you have to remember very carefully, was Mrs. McGinty talking about either of these two women? And he said, yeah, she was prattling on and on and on about it. And he goes, what did she say? And he said something that someone was involved with the Evelyn Hope story. And he's like, who? And he says, I can't remember. And Poirot says something so devastating, which is, it would be a shame if the reason you were wrongfully hanged was because you couldn't pay attention to when other people are speaking.
Yeah.
So, and he goes, I'm sorry, my mind wanders, it does.
Yeah.
Got him.
That would be the reason I was wrongly accused
Oh, yeah, I'd be like, oh,
of something.
man. Listen, I'm sorry. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So he scoots on back to Broad Hinny. And Sweetums calls him over to the post office, and that's why he goes. And she confesses that she's been having an affair with Joe, Bessie's husband, and she witnessed a woman go into the Upton house that night.
Yes, and she was a blonde woman.
Oh. Yes. And so that helps.
Right. Basically, we're now looking at either Eva Carpenter or Mrs. Rendell.
However, Rendell is whom?
Rendell is
the doctor.
Is the
the
doctor.
doctor's wife.
Okay. However, hostess Airbnb lady, she is very untidy. The whole place is untidy. And at one point, Poirot, she takes something out of a drawer and Poirot puts it back in and fixes up her drawer.
Yep.
This happens again after he has a conversation with Robin, who is now staying also at the Airbnb because because there's an interim period with the Upton property where he can't afford to stay there because he's a broke playwright.
I mean, it's something about, something
Yeah,
like that.
with the inheritance, there's some like layover. So he's now staying at the Airbnb above Poirot. And then Airbnb hostess does the exact same thing, and Poirot starts putting stuff back, and he finds a photograph of Ava
Kane.
Kane, thank you, with the words "my mother" written on the back of it, which now casts suspicion on Airbnb hostess.
As it turns out, she works for American Airlines.
Yeah, if you can believe it. She's in that Britney Spears outfit the whole time.
Oh, how toxic.
Oh, you did it again. But so that's suspicion there. But then Poirot has a meeting with Spence and they talk it over. And he has a long think about it and he goes, I've been so stupid.
Yeah.
And it's like, have quick comment. He says something in French. Poirot speaks a lot of French in this episode.
He does.
Which I very much enjoyed. But Spence says, come on, Poirot, I don't speak foreign.
Yeah.
Which is very funny, I think, because it's like rude. Number one, it is rude. Number two, I think Spence is like kind of self-effacing about it. Like, I'm uneducated. Come on.
Sure,
I don't
sure.
speak anything but English. Look at me.
Yeah. That makes
And
sense.
Then they rush off and it's the parlor reveal, isn't it?
It is.
We made it.
First, it's time for an ad break.
It is.
Tristan.
So you're listening to an episode of the Amateur Detective Club, which you can find. All of our episodes are logged on the scavengersnetwork.com, which is the network we're on, scavengersnetwork.com. Go check out a bunch of great content. A lot of the programs participated in that independent podcast showcase, so if you want to check out those specifically, not just the one where we've reviewed Boy Meets World.
What?
No, what is it called? What is not? It's not Boy Meets World. What did we watch?
Oh, Tristan, you'll get there.
No, I
No?
won't.
Saved by the Bell?
They're the same show.
It's
No, they are
Have you
not.
ever seen Boy Meets World?
I've seen like 2 episodes.
Oh my god. It's not.
They're all in high school.
Go on to your ad break.
Anyway, we reviewed Saved by the Bell. Anyway, point being, there's a bunch of different podcasts. They all did special episodes for that event. You should go listen to them. You can also buy merch. It's in our show notes. Mugs. I'm at my parents' home. What? What about that?
Mugs.
Mugs. I don't know. We got them. You want them? We got shirts. But I'm at my parents' home, and my mother very kindly ordered a mug, and so I get to use that for my morning coffee while I'm
nice.
here.
Oh,
It reminds me of home, because we all have matching mugs as well.
There's one here too.
Ew. Mugs?
Mugs. You can find us on social media at the Amateur Detective. What? No, at ADC Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can email us if you want to suggest an episode for us to cover of a TV show or a movie or something. Maybe you could send us some suggestions. amateurdetectiveclub@gmail.com.
And I have that on my phone, so I will respond promptly.
Great, because I don't check it at all.
It's okay.
Hey, it's Pride Month. I'm bi. Give us money, please.
Oh, me too. Yes.
So, you want to help support bi content creators? Head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/ADCpod. Give us as little as $1 a month, please. Oh, message.
What? Huh?
Butt soup, right?
Oh, right. It is required of me by the great state of Minnesota, specifically Minnetonka County, I must say, every week, butt soup. Also, let's get back to the show. My brain is fried. Which is weird. We're back. Which is weird that my brain... My brain is so fried, but I was able to focus. My mom, we were watching it, and she turns to me and she goes... And she turned and she was like, I was checking to see, and I was like, what? And she's like, I was checking to see if you were asleep because you hadn't said anything for an hour and a half. And I was like, yeah, I have to remember this. I have to remember this. I have to concentrate. And despite my brain being fried, we are here at the parlor review.
We made it.
Ugh.
And it all hinges on one very fundamental question.
What
Who
happens?
Put the bot in the bot, the bot, the bot, who put the ram and the ram a lam a ding dong.
Yeah. The question is, what happens when you assume gender?
No. That's true.
It does. But the answer I was looking for is, why did Mrs. McGinty die?
Yes. No.
The answer is the same.
No, I was hoping that, Melissa, you had, during the ad break, quickly Googled a riddle. And because you're like, what do you get when you cross? Anyway, yeah. So
when you cross gender, what do you get when you cross gender norms and an ignorant journalist who makes assumptions?
Trump 2024. Too soon.
And also, you don't realize that a man could be named Evelyn Hope.
Now, here's the thing. I did not know Evelyn was at any point a man's name.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard a man be named that.
Okay.
So this was, I was as shocked as Spence in
I
this
think-
moment.
I think I've heard it before,
Okay.
but I don't have any evidence to back that up. I just think I have.
I have
What's the dude from Hamilton? His twin, Evil Lin-Manuel.
my soul has left my body. I saw you constructing it. Beautiful.
Which is amazing. Which is amazing that you saw it because Tyler has his camera off.
Yeah,
I have that effect.
Oh, now I have a question. I have another question. The Oompa Loompa songs. I swear to God. Okay, so the Oompa Loompa songs, are they riddles? Because they say, what do you get?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're riddles.
And they rhyme.
Look, they can
Yes,
rhyme.
I mean, it's
but
like the square rectangle thing.
Yes.
That all rectangles are for squares and you shouldn't associate with them. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
I've been saying that to my kids since they were 5.
So basically what happens is Robin is secretly Evelyn Hope, who is the son of Ava...
Kane.
Kane.
Mm-hmm.
And they arrest him for the murder of...
Okay, all right.
of
So,
them. He did it!
so,
Don't look at me.
Oh, yeah. He's
oh
very
my
emotional.
gosh. Oh, it's good. It's so good. He's very dramatic about the whole thing. So, yeah, essentially, Robin, which also could be Robin, which is also a gender-neutral name.
It is.
He was adopted by Mrs. Upward, and but he had a photo of his mom that he put in a drawer, and it says "my mother" on it. That's the photo that Poirot found. And when Mrs. McGinty started talking about it to everyone she knew, he was like, oh no, this is going to be a huge problem, that you found out that my murdering mother was my mother. So I can't let anybody know that. So I got to kill you. So then that happened. Poirot came and meddled because he had set up our poor guy, that, our poor unobservant friend. Bentley had set him up to take the fall. Thought he was in the clear. Then Poirot comes meddling, and once he shows the pictures, his mom that raised him, Mrs. Upward, pointed to Lily Gamble instead of Eva Kane because she wanted to throw them off, but she knew too much. She knew what was going on, and so he set it up. So right before he went to the theater with Mrs. Oliver, he strangled his mom to death, put some lipstick on a mug, and sprayed the perfume around.
Mm-hmm.
Then the phone call was staged, and he posed as his mother in the phone call to throw everybody off.
Yes. And one of the reasons Poirot was able to get to this conclusion of, like, why would you leave the lipstick stain and not, like, open a window for a little bit to let the scent out? It's very purposefully pointing to femininity, so it's overkill.
Yes.
So, yes, he has this very dramatic, don't look at me, very John Merrick-esque performance. Very good, though, but they cart him away, and as Bentley's being released, Poirot is sitting in a taxi with Bentley's friend, whose name I cannot recall, the real estate agent.
Maud?
Yes.
Blanche?
Maud, yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Maud. And he was like, what's your involvement? Why did you care so much? And her last name was Craig, which was the person who was wrongfully accused and hanged for the murder that Ava Kane committed. So she was seeking vengeance, went to the Upwards home that evening and found Mrs. Upward already dead.
Yeah, she had a gun and everything, was going to take revenge.
Yep.
And she says to Poirot, I'm so glad I didn't pull that trigger. And then she says, you know, are you going to turn me in? What should I do? Poirot's like, nah, go hang out with your friend, Mr. Bentley. And so they have a walk and they're smiling.
And then it freeze frames like Rocky 2.
There's also the bit about who pushed him on the train, and I didn't follow it.
Yes. The doctor's wife.
Yeah.
Oh.
Doctor's wife, because the doctor was assisting suicides and wasn't getting paid for it. But still, people are going to, as Poirot says, tongues will wag. So she wanted to halt the investigation of what she thought Poirot was actually investigating, which was not the case.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was this whole thing as well with the major and his wife having some sort of hatchet that they bought from her at a swap meet thing, and and that was clearly the murder weapon. But it doesn't matter too much, to be honest. We got there.
Yeah, they talked about, because the girl Lily Gamble did her murder with like a meat cleaver, and then this is something.
Meet the cleavers.
Yeah, something similar but different. It's a sugar hammer.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the name I used to dance under.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you were going to come up with.
So what do we think of this episode?
Okay. So I really liked it. It's a pain to review. If I didn't have to review it, it'd probably be like a 4.5 out of 5. But since I did have to remember everything, a 4. I really enjoyed it. It was quite good. It was very fun, and I was engaged the entire time. I didn't look at my phone once. It made sense at the end. It also, I will say though, I figured it was one of those cases of like, I know who, but I want to know how.
You figured it out?
Yeah, I was like, they're really assuming that it's a woman, huh? And then we get a couple of versions of the Poirot theme musically, and that gets points for me. And I liked that. And I do like I didn't much care for like the vignette around, but the film grain and everything to make it look a little bit closer to the 80s series, I did enjoy. It felt kind of like a return to it was a nice blend of the old and the new. So also Suchet does some very good acting in this one. He gives what I call the Suchet look like 4 or 5 times. You know the one I'm talking about, where the camera pushes in and he looks a little past it at somebody.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
I love it.
It's good stuff.
I'd give it a 2. A point each for Zoe Wanamaker and 1 for David Suchet. I didn't find enjoyment in this really at all, and I found it to be quite forgettable.
I didn't find enjoyment in this. Oh, that's a very
just
funny
being honest.
No, it's just like I looked and I could find none. I searched all around, under and over and side to side, and to the window to the wall, and there was none. None to be found. That was all right.
I am going to go right down the middle and say a 3. I was so hopeful. Like, I desperately wanted to like this episode.
Evelyn hopeful?
You should have wrote this one. I probably would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really wanted to like it because it had the elements, the setup that I wanted. But yeah, it got a little convoluted for me. This is actually something where I'm very curious about the book and if I might like the book more.
Yes.
I feel like there was too much episode, like there wasn't enough time, even though it was an hour and a half movie or whatever. It didn't feel like there was enough time to do all of the things they needed to do in this, and that some of it just got like the fact that we were having so much trouble with, which character was that again? These people didn't really matter kind of stuff. Like, I wanted to really go down that path, and it didn't feel, I don't know, it didn't feel focused enough. We definitely got the focus on Eva Carpenter. Like, I knew who she was.
Yeah.
But like all the other characters were just, I don't know, it kind of got muddied for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I'm also in the same way of I want to read the book, and also because it's such a shame, because the idea of like I kind of get why they're doing the vignette and like the out of focus, because it is almost a how do you say Stepford Wives sort of, a village that's too perfect when he goes there. And I like that idea a lot. I think I'm with you, Melissa. I like all the elements of surrounding the story, but the story itself this adaptation was a bit confusing.
Yeah. There was an interesting thing. I just recently finally finished The Haunting of Bly Manor, which is excellent. And that's a mystery. No, it's okay. We don't have to do a ghost story.
I started watching it. I enjoyed most of it.
It's really good. They made it during the day, it's too bright. Like, every single time they're outside or every time you see daylight, it is too bright at Bly Manor. Mm-hmm. And that was really fascinating to me, because it was kind of subtle, but at the same time, I ended up watching the first 7 episodes twice. Mm-hmm. Like, I watched them in October, then I watched them again, and then finally watched the last 2. And I noticed really, like, it was overexposed. And I thought that was a neat trick, because it's like something's wrong, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that filter that they had on it was on this episode of Poirot is like too much. It's like I see what you're kind of going for, but I don't know that it's this.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're getting the effect that you want.
It's also this strange thing of like watching this in HD. I'm seeing like I can see Suchet's makeup.
Yeah.
You can see, since it's shot on digital now, you can tell. And that is this other, it kind of gives this weird otherworldly quality to it as well.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. But so a 3, a perfectly serviceable episode of Poirot.
Yeah, if you're an average of all of us.
Yep. It is fine. It was a fine enough experience.
You can put it on in front of your face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a great, BBC One and chill episode.
That's right.
Because who doesn't want to chill while staring directly at Papa? Papa Poirot.
So, with that, I now call this meeting of the Amateur Detective Club to a close.
Gavel sound.
Xenophobia.
Oh, no. I don't want to laugh at that.
The Scavengers Network.
Creator-driven.
Community-focused.
Treasured content.